Welcome to week 6, everybody. I will be looking at your week 5 work over the next several days, so be looking for feedback there. Please let me know if you have any questions about grades so far. If there are any grades that you think there's an issue with, let me know. We want to make sure that as we're getting close to the end that we're not having any conflicts there. I'm especially looking forward to looking at your collages. Those are always a really cool assignment for me to see and to grade and read about your reasoning behind why you did what you did. So that should be fun. Again, by Friday at the latest, expect to get all your work back. I don't think there's been a week yet where I've gotten everything back that late, but it's just to give me a little bit of grace, in case some things with my schedule conflict and things take longer to grade than normal. But I'll probably have all that stuff done and back to you by about Wednesday this week is my guess. So week 6, we're talking about places and spaces. This is an interesting week. We have extra credit this week. So if you feel like, grade-wise you're not quite where you want to be, this is an opportunity for you to kind of show me that you really are involved and putting in that little bit of extra effort doing that extra credit assignment that we'll talk about in just a moment. So we're going to be reading not from either of our textbooks this week, but that web link that I've given you that was in the syllabus. And it's an essay, rather more an interview that's transcribed with a famous postmodern theorist named Michel Foucault. And Foucault has some very interesting ideas going on. He was writing primarily in the 60s and 70s. But some especially interesting ideas with this idea of place and space and time as well. And this is really interesting when we're talking about visual culture because his whole perspective is that the way we design and make up these spaces is really dictated by how we use them and how their use changes and shifts throughout history. That, where, for example, he talks about cemeteries used to always be at a church in the middle of town, and our perspective on death was a little bit different. Now cemeteries tend to be on the outskirts. We've distanced ourselves from this idea of death and decay and disease, and so that's interesting to consider why we design spaces the way we do, and that of course is very visual as well. So this what you're going to be reading by Foucault, it's probably the hardest thing you're going to read all session. I won't sugarcoat it. But that's okay. Just because something's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't engage with it, and we may not understand all of it, but there's a lot that we can possibly glean for. So I want you to kind of just go into this guns blazing, that, I'm gonna go for this. I'm gonna see what I can get out of it. I've included a lecture for you, so you can download this PDF, and it will be lecture slides that you can use to accompany the reading. I don't do an auditory lecture to go with it or a video. But if you're walking through this and gosh, I'm just really struggling with this part, send me an email, let me know, and we can talk through it in more detail. Remember, I'm a resource for you to use, but I can't help if I don't know that you need help. So the essay looks like this. It's not terribly long. It shouldn't take you more than about 20-30 minutes to read through. But he has this whole introduction where he talks about the mirror and this kind of world inside the mirror. And then he goes into these different ideas. And the main idea here is heterotopias. And if you're thinking, well, what on earth is a heterotopia? It's kind of this phrase that in a way he coined. And he talks about the difference between a utopia and a heterotopia. So he's going to talk through that. And then he goes through these principles of what is a heterotopia. And he talks about this is what a heterotopia is, and this is an example of that. So go ahead and read through that. Your quiz will have questions about this. Your extra credit assignment is going to be about this as well. So if you view the film clip here on photographer Stephen Shore, what I'd like you to do is read Foucault's Heterotopias, watch the film clip on Stephen Shore, and then decide, do you think that heterotopias exist today? How does this knowledge help you understand the way we use visual space? How might the work of photographer Stephen Shore be considered heterotopic? And remember, these are journals, so these are about, definitely one page is what I want, especially for an extra credit assignment. At least one full page here. It doesn't need to be 2 or 3. I'm just looking for one solid, good page worth of information here. And again, you want any feedback there, or you're just struggling to get through this, let me know and we'll walk through some of these ideas together. I know it's kind of a challenging one, so I am here to help. We're doing another create assignment this week, and this time we're getting outside. It's a beautiful time of year to get outside and walk away from your computer screen for a few minutes. And this is going to give you the opportunity to create your own original earth sculpture in the style of artist Andy Goldsworthy. So I've included a short documentary. This is about 24-25 minutes, and it's going to show him creating his work. Andy Goldsworthy uses all natural materials, and a lot of his work takes place outdoors. So there's this idea of temporality where, if you don't go and experience these in that moment, then they may not exist any longer. And this kind of plays into the ideas of time and space and place that Foucault talks about with heterotopias. But what you're going to do is use only natural materials, and these can be leaves in the backyard, branches in the park, seashells on the beach, whatever it might be. You're going to use creative problem solving to complete 3 earth sculptures to photograph and submit. So the key here is to transform these materials in some way, creating something entirely new. I won't give you credit if you simply photograph something as it is. So don't go and photograph your rose bush in your front yard and think this counts as a sculpture. I want you to take these materials like we were doing with collage. We were taking images and putting them into a brand new composition where it's seemingly disjointed images that now fit together to give some kind of voice to some subject. So after finishing the sculptures, photograph them, post your images in a blog entry. That's how this one is done. And then answer the following questions about your experience making these sculptures. So 1, describe the experience you had doing this project. What was the most challenging part of creating these sculptures? A lot of times students, say that just figuring out what to do, gathering materials, and then kind of figuring out how to start was the hardest part. So reread Foucault's 3rd principle about the theater and the garden. And how are your sculptures similar here? Are you creating a world within a world? And this will make sense when you read that section of the text. Number 3, has doing this project changed the way you think about artists like Andy Goldsworthy? Why or why not? Sometimes students say, no, I've always appreciated this kind of art. Other times students say, you know what, I never really understood what was going on with these kind of sculptural works. I kind of didn't really like it, but now engaging with it has changed my perspective. It's going to engage you visual and kinesthetic learners especially. So find at least one biblical reference that can pair well with the images of your sculptures. How do your images communicate the message that is found in these sculptures? Because, this is the earth that God created after all. So this is all about, how the visual can be a tool for communicating some idea. So I'm looking about 2 to 6 sentences in length for each of these answers. Be sure to proofread your work before submitting. And these are some examples from Andy Goldsworthy. And I've given you a link that if you follow this link, it will show you a lot more of his work. So this is actually just someone's blog entry, but it walks through a lot of the work he did. You can see his creativity is just off the charts with what he does. But again, everything is done only with natural materials, mostly outside in nature. And he's really taking these materials and transforming them into something really beautiful and really kind of reverential to the earth and what God has created. So take some time to really explore and enjoy his work and get some ideas for, there he is, for what you might want to do for these sculptures. Okay, so you get to get outside and create something, and you also get to write this week, of course. We're doing our film review, so hopefully last week you already picked a film, took notes on it, watched it, and now this week's going to be all about writing it. So we're talking 6 to 8 page review, considering a number of cultural factors relevant to each film. So this assignment is intended to be a critical review. Therefore, the emphasis of the paper should be on the questions proposed by each prompt. You can include a 1 to 2 page summary in that 6 to 8 pages. So if the first couple pages are summary of the film, that's fine. Anything longer than that, then what's happening is you're giving too much summary of the film and you're not taking enough time to address the prompt and really get into that analysis that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go over these just a little bit more in detail. So we have The Passion of the Christ. All of these are available on Netflix, by the way. So things to think about here. How does the new media of film affect the delivery of a timeless story? So biblical story, timeless story, right? Consider camera angles, montage scenes, flashbacks, etc. Give a minimum of 3 examples. So this is all about how a new medium can take a story that has been told for thousands of years, mostly oral, right, or written, and is giving us a new experience and maybe can present it in a way that we haven't been able to experience before. Number 2, what is the theme of the story? Consider rise, climax, and fall of action. So we're talking about the medium of film here in general. And how do these thematic elements influence the audience perspective? Number 3, how does the idea of authorship, so authorship of scripture, and interpretation by Mel Gibson, who directed this film. So he's taken a text that was authored and he's interpreting it in his own way. And how does this play into storytelling in his interpretation of this scripture? So what artistic liberties, for example, does he take? And he does take quite a few. So I want you to give at least 3 examples of elements that are found in the film that are not found in scripture. And number 4, who was the target audience for this film and why? Your second option is a documentary called The True Cost. This is a relatively new documentary. It just came out this year. And a very relevant one to culture, especially globalization and the fashion industry. But what I want you to think about here is, number 1, what is the concept of fast fashion that they present in the film, and how is it affecting our economy on a global scale? So give at least 3 examples of cause and effect. Number 2, in what ways are advertising and visual culture contributing to the way we consume clothing? So again, this visual culture, because this is what we're about, isn't it? We're about contemporary visual culture here. So how is visual culture really contributing to what we buy? Give 3 examples from the film or your own research here. Number 3, how can consumers affect change on this model? So in the model they present in the film, as experts pose it in the film, consuming more can have a negative effect on your psyche. Can a change in your consumption habits improve your well-being? How can it improve the well-being of others? And this plays into the Christian message as well. Speaking of, number 4, as Christians, what is our moral obligation when it comes to consuming goods? What is our obligation to the environment? So this one really, if you choose this documentary, this is really kind of an ethical debate that goes on with this film. And your third option is a remake, or excuse me, an adaptation of a iconic children's book called The Little Prince, which was written by a French author in the 1943, I believe it was. So during World War II. If you haven't watched this, this is a great one to watch if you have kids. So kill 2 birds with one stone, family movie night, and you also can get some work done. Very beautifully done. And so what I want you to think about here, just because it's a cartoon doesn't mean we can't think very critically about it. So number 1, describe how this film illustrates the idea that film is first a visual medium. So consider the pros and cons of translating a beloved classic book to film. What can a film offer that the book can't? And what can a book offer that the film can't? Number 2, what is nostalgia? And when I'm asking you this, I don't just want a dictionary definition. I want you to really do a little bit of research on this concept of nostalgia. So how is the concept of nostalgia present in this film? And why is nostalgia so powerful on our psyche? So again, this is going to require research beyond a dictionary definition. Number 3, how is symbolism present in the film? Be specific. Give me at least 3 examples. Why are these symbols important to the characters, and what is their function in the story? Can any of these symbols reflect a Christian narrative? Why or why not? They may not, and you can decide that for yourself. And number 4, how does this film deviate from reality? So how does this film give the viewer a sense of magic, even though there is no magic in this film. And this is kind of the Pixar model as well, that in Pixar films, there's never a wave of a wand, a spell cast, a witch, a magician, whatever it might be, but there is always a sense of magic, whether it's talking toys or talking cars or a house that flies via balloons, whatever it might be. There's always this sense of magic. And that happens here in The Little Prince as well. And so I want you to talk about how that is present in this story and really what that means and how that plays into our imagination. So 3 very different films for you to choose from. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have on any of these that you choose. You've got your quiz as well. So we've got quiz, we have film review that hopefully you've already gotten started on, and you have your earth sculptures. So that is what is due this week. If you choose, you also can do your extra credit assignment. And I will actually accept this up until the end of week 7. And so I'll put that in here as well, just to give you guys a little extra time to work on that if it's something that you choose to. Any questions about what's going on this week, don't hesitate to ask. It's a busy week, but it's a really engaging one. This is one of my favorite weeks of the class. So I hope you all have an excellent, excellent week.